Hello and welcome. I'm your host for this episode, Dara McBride. Joining me is Markevis Gideon. Markevis's mission is to inspire innovation. The gift of a computer changed his life as a young student, and eventually that led him to found NerdItNow, the first IT recycling company in the state of Delaware. He has since donated thousands of computers to at risk communities. Markevis and NerdItNow have been featured on ABC's Shark Tank, NBC News, The Washington Post, and more. Currently, he is focused on the continued growth of NerdIt Now and building an IT apprenticeship to help close the digital divide. Welcome, Markevis.
Uh, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here and really share our story about how we've got to where we've gotten with the word yes and really just trying to continue to making that community impact.
Yes, it's so cool to have you on. I've heard you speak, in person and just throughout different platforms. So it's great to have you here in person. You've spoken about discovering your unique path and purpose, that it can make a world of difference in your fulfillment and impact. And you memorably call this finding your China. So could you tell us about saying yes to study abroad and how that changed your life trajectory?
Yes, so it was an interesting story. I was living with a few females in college, and one day I wake up and I see they're all diligently working towards this application. I'm like, where are you applying to? And they're like, oh, we want to study abroad in China. And immediately I thought, that's dumb. I laid back down. But then as I thought, I'm like, wait, they're all going and some of their friends. Maybe this could be an interesting opportunity. Though the motive wasn't the right one, I later found out that this was one of the best opportunities I could ever really get presented. So I decided to apply to go to China and I did a 1 month study abroad. In that moment, I thought this is kind of cool. I never really left the country, let alone the continent. So going there, it just opened me up to more diverse demographic, different culture, different religions. It just really opened me up. And that later translated to after college, where I had the opportunity to live there for what started off as 4 months, ended up being 5 years living in China, and really just broadened my perspective on a lot of different topics and made me the person who I am today.
Wow. So, how did 4 months turn into 5 years?
I learned how to say "我要吃麦乐鸡和番茄酱," which means I want chicken nuggets and ketchup. It was like an explosive moment. Like, wow, I can really eat now. And as I thought, like, well, I can order food. I guess I could stay a little longer as my language was getting better. So then around month 8, I said, okay, maybe I'll leave then. But then I start making more friends outside of the university, like more Asians. We're able to communicate. Instead of talking like I'm talking now, I'll be like, you, face, red, uh, glasses. But no, I start being able to speak better because then a year and a half later, leave me anywhere in China, I was perfectly fine on my own. I was able to hold daily conversations. I began to really start traveling on my own, which exploring like different countries in the area, Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. I'm like, wow, the world is very small and I want to step out and do a bit more, which really helped me want to stay even longer.
So, you just said the world is very small. Why do you feel that way?
Because like you're just here and you're seeing things, but honestly, you can get to the other world, other parts of the country, and you realize we're actually really similar, though our culture may be different, may look a little different. We're actually really interested in the same thing. Like, I'll go to China, ask like, who's your favorite basketball player? And we'll all say similar names. Like, the world is small. We can really get along together. We just got to break past a lot of these differences.
So, tell me about how, that study abroad experience and living abroad experience, what from that did you bring home and how did it affect Nerd It Now?
So when people think of like China and what I did initially, I couldn't say huh. I was like really doing a whole bunch of good things. It was like I start at the university. I got kicked off the campus. So then I was like, okay, now I need to find a job to maintain my visa. I started teaching children how to speak English. And fun fact, I don't like other people's children, so that wasn't really good for me as well. So then I'm like, okay, what next? I start teaching at the university. And at this point, I didn't really like teaching. However, this was a good opportunity. Like I'm working at a university, it was minimum hours. So I was able to explore other opportunities. Well, I met one lady whose husband's owned an import export company. That gave me the opportunity to really travel all throughout Asia. I'm like, oh wow, I'm really traveling a lot. And then I met one guy who worked at Honeywell, and together we opened up a bar. And when I thought of this, I'm like, wow, I never thought I'd run a bar, but this was like a legitimate bar. Like we had 12 waitresses, three bartenders, a bar manager. It was inside the base of a hotel, a five-star hotel. So it was like a really classy bar, which we called Foreigners. But what that taught me was how to run a business. Now, prior to China, I was always knowing how to make money. Like I started my first computer company when I was 14 years old. I'm selling candy in high school. Like everybody always knew I was selling something, but it was nothing more than a hustle. Like it would last for a season and then it would go away. It didn't really build onto anything. But watching this bar really hire its first few people, then even more people, and it wasn't like a contract opportunity. I ran the bar for 3.5 years before I moved back to America. I was like, wow, I'm actually learning how to run a business. So when I moved back to America, I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to do a side hustle anymore. I want to actually run a business, something that's going to actually grow into something. And when we start looking at NerdIt now, and funny, I kind of reverted like, no, I think just flipping computers was good. But as I realized the impact that I was having on our local communities, I realized I needed to make it a business. So I had to revert back to everything I learned running the bar and use those same principles running this business. And that's how I've been able to really scale this business up over the past few years.
So tell us about NerdIt Now. What is the concept and what kind of impact have you had through it?
Yeah, so NerdIt now has been here since 2015. It started off as a IT repair shop, repairing computers, phones, tablets, and the intent was really to make sure that we're able to donate technology back into underserved communities. So I'm like, okay, we're going to do that. And over the years, we started to scale up quickly, like repairing more devices. We became one of the fastest growing IT companies in the state of Delaware. And as we're getting all of this recognition, I'm like, wow, this is making a bigger impact. I'm able to donate better computers, do even more. We started our nonprofit in 2018, but I wanted to have a bigger impact. I needed to find a way to get even more computers. So I sought the certification to become a IT recycler. And when I looked at that, I'm like, cool, this is a big thing we can do because there's not one here in Delaware. Well, we were able to scale up from a 5,000 square foot retail operation to over 50,000 square feet, hiring more individuals, donating more computers, but then also generating enough income so that we can actually make sustainable jobs and really sustain this business. I know it's been a lot of growing pains, the ups and downs, but I've been learning so much and it's really been expanding here in the Newcastle County. And I'm looking to see how I could do even more because I have clients across the country right now. It's just been an amazing opportunity.
So I have a question here for you, but I'm not sure if it's actually phrased right now. My question is, what advice do you have for someone considering an unexpected opportunity? But it also sounds like you've done really well at each step of your life, building from that experience and turning it into something else. So, do you feel like Nerd It Now or study abroad, living in China, were those unexpected opportunities or were they all thoughtful moves?
Yeah, if you look at my life, it was a comic book. I could have not planned this to save my life. Like, even getting into technology, it was at 12 years old, a teacher giving me a computer. I didn't expect that. I didn't know what to do with that. Like, my family, we really couldn't afford one. And I did the unexpected. I took it apart and put it together. I kept doing this, and people were like, "What are you doing, Markevis?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm having fun." And the teacher said, "Well, let me show you more computers." I started doing it with more, which led to another opportunity. Now, I grew up in the city, and there was a lot of trauma around me. But when I moved to Claymont, Delaware, it was like more suburban. I felt more comfortable. They said, Marquis, go back to the high school in Wilmington. And I'm like, no, this is a horrible idea. But that was a great opportunity. I became a Microsoft certified systems engineer by 17 years old. I'm like, whoa, this was like a great, and that led me to go to college, which will later lead to me going to study abroad, which will later lead to me. Like, these aren't things that you expect. And what I tell people is sometimes you got to just go with it. Like, look at the opportunity and just think, like, when would you have the chance to do this again? And if you think it's somewhat interesting and it's different, like, go for it because that could lead to a ton of opportunity that you would have never otherwise had.
So it sounds like you've had some helpful nudges along the way. Can you tell me about the three most influential people in your life right now?
Oh man, to say narrow it down to three people, that would be a challenge for me. Like one person I would definitely say is like my parents. Like they guided me, they showed me through their rights and their wrongs. Like I learned so much about what I should or should not do watching them. I look at my faith, which is by far like I know it's not a certain person, but like as a man of faith, a Christian, like that's like my steering compass, which really helps me go. And then I look at like just the community leaders. There's like so many different people that I look at to help mentor me in so many different ways. That just gives me so much inspiration. I look at like my competition. I look at other nonprofit leaders. I look at for-profit leaders. Like you're all like motivation to me. Motivation to really do good for me, my family. Like me and my wife, we do this together, and we look at so many other people and like, yeah, we can aspire to do more. So I tell people, don't limit yourself to like one thing. A lot of times, my son, you ask him, "What's your favorite vacation spot?" And he's like, "Well, I really like Disney World now, but then Martha Vineyard is really cool. But when we went to Singapore, that was cool." And what we're telling him is, it's okay if you like different things. You know what? There's no favorite because each one has a different impact on your life. It's okay. So trying to teach that to a 5 year old is it's fun.
Do you think he'll do study abroad?
My hope is like when I look at opportunities for kids, when you go to high school, a lot of people tell me, Marquis, did you set up a 529 savings plan? And I say no, I don't want to do that. Because what if my kids decide they don't want to go to college? Then what? Like they're like, well, maybe you want to pass it on to a relative. Well, no, I'm talking about my kids right now. And for my kids, what I want to do is create wealth building opportunities. So how do I invest my money in ways that will help sustain their life regardless of what they do? So I figure like my kids will have one of a few different options. One, go to college. Great. I want something that could help sustain that. Or do they want to go study abroad? Cool, great. Do they want to come work with the family business and grow that? Cool, we'll do that. Start your own business. Cool, I'll help you do that. Or you'll be a bum. I won't help you with that. But what I do know is like with one of those four opportunities, I want to be able to help create the opportunity. And I did, my wife and I, we really decided, we said, when it's time for our kids to be teenagers, they've been to so many countries at this point that it's almost the normal. So when my son turns 18, we want to make sure that he's comfortable enough to take his, at the time, 16-year-old younger brother, and they're going to do a 3 month travel abroad without us. I want you to go to Southeast Asia, go have fun. We've done it so many times. You know which hotels we stay at, you know which restaurants they eat at, you know where to go and where not to go. We want them to be able to feel so confident in themselves that they can do it on their own. I think more kids need that.
Wow. That does sound like a very exciting opportunity. I wish, yes, could you adopt me? I'll go too.
Yeah.
So you've talked about this being a family operation, but with the business comes challenges. So what is the most challenging moment you faced while building NerdIt now, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think scale has always been the most challenging um, challenge that I've really faced. Like you got to think like every 2 to 3 years, my company has taken a big jump. And then when I look at it in the past, I'm like, the challenge was not really different than it was 2 or 3 years ago. It's just bigger. But with that, my resources have grown as well. So it's actually the same. I remember I was talking to an old colleague of mine yesterday, and we're sitting there talking, and he's like, "Man, remember that time when I needed some cash? I needed $15, and you look in your wallet, you only had seven. You gave it to me, and said, 'This is all I had.'" I was like, "Yeah, I remember that. Like we were hungry. We had nothing to eat. We were like growing this business." He's like, "Yeah, like it's no different from now." So like where before I'm like my payroll was a few thousand to like several thousand every other week. It's kind of the same. It's just scale. It's a challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs aren't taught. Like, yeah, I think in college, we don't really talk about how to run a business. We talk how to work for a business. But when you're trying to run it, it's a lot of challenging things you got to do when you're trying to scale. I do know if I was to say, I want to just stay here. Like Markevis, me and my wife, we're just completely content right here. We don't want to grow. We'll probably be okay for a while. I mean, eventually we'll get old and there'll be nothing to really continue generating revenue for us, but we'll live a comfortable life. But when you're trying to grow, it's a different beast.
So through NerdIt Now, you've appeared on Shark Tank and you've been name dropped by Joe Biden. What is the biggest pinch me moment that you've had because of your career?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to answer this in two different ways. I'm a first answer because a lot of people ask me what's the best thing I've ever done. And my answer to that, which is really indirect, it's what I'm going to do tomorrow. I always look at what's next. Like it's great that I've been on Shark Tank. It's great that I've had presidential shout outs. And every single time that was a pinch me moment. Like we're on Shark Tank right now. Like I couldn't believe it. But was that any different from the 4 years prior to that? Wait, we got a business with its own location. Like I never imagined this. We're hiring people. I couldn't. So I look at continue to grow because I want to have a life full of pinch me moments.
That's nice. Yeah, I would like that too. What a beautiful answer. Okay, so speaking of looking to the future, we're going to move on to a rapid fire section. This is going to be fun, and we're just going to get to know you a little bit better, a little bit different. So, are you ready to play?
Let's play.
Okay, what is your favorite breakfast?
Pancakes.
What time do you usually wake up in the morning?
6:30. I don't like it, but I have to help my kids.
Do you believe those? This isn't rapid fire, but do you believe what they say about entrepreneurs, like having to rise early and having to make your bed to have a good day? Yeah.
I do believe it. Yes, it's very imperative because it keeps things in order. Like when you wake up and it's flustered, it messes up the whole day. However, with two, three, five, 3 and a 5-year-old, oh my goodness, like can't wait.
How do you usually answer the telephone?
Marquis was speaking. How may I help you? Note it now.
Okay. What is your favorite movie genre?
Horror.
Horror. Why is that?
I don't know. I really like scary movies though. I really do.
Better to be scared by a movie than scared by what is happening with your business or your life, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a movie that you enjoy quoting the most?
No, actually don't. I've never really cared for TV movies, so I think when I do watch movies, it's really just empty space for me. I'm not really thinking. It's just on TV. I much rather read or work. Like I much rather be the one that working so hard that one day someone will write a book about.
Yeah. As a tech person, do you find that you have to like get a unplug in a certain way? Is that something important to you? Are you able to do it?
Not even a little bit. I thought about it, but with AI, the way it is, it's like we better just keep on going with the flow. Like technology is it.
Yeah. Do you think of yourself as a tech person or an entrepreneur or a business
I
person? What's your
so people
category?
ask me that all the time. Is technology my passion? No, it's a hobby. I'm an entrepreneur. That's my passion, which just so happen to use my hobby to make money.
Okay. Does that mean that you will have another business venture one day?
That's my problem. I have too many different business ventures. I started, like, even when you look at NerdIt now, it started off as a retail space. Then I had an ambulance. Then I had a kiosk. Now I got a warehouse. And then I start doing these kiosk things again. And now I'm doing real estate. And now I'm doing a nonprofit. It's like, yeah, entrepreneurs, it's a hard life.
Okay. What is a good spy code name for you?
TV.
What is that?
TV would be TV.
Kiwi. Okay.
It's a weird one, but I recognize it.
We can go with it. Okay. And then last but not least, if you were to write a book, what would it be about?
Find My China.
Yeah.
How I found purpose where I wasn't looking.
Would there be a children's book edition?
There would be. I actually start doing this thing where I'm speaking at kids, and I call it throwing darts in the dark. Where I believe that often a lot of people are doing that. If we could teach kids younger to turn on the lights, identify your goal, they might get there sooner.
All right, so on to our last section. Again, it's a little bit fun. It's called Chatbot Says. So we know that AI is only as smart as the people using it. Given your experience on Shark Tank and penchant for helping others, we asked a chatbot to help us come up with an entrepreneurial game show for you to host. So, of these titles, which one are you most likely to pick? Nerdit Nation, the Techtastic Tournament. Markevis is the tech guru, and you're the next big thing. Let's get nerdy.
Let's get nerdy. That is it.
That's it. Okay, I have a few more for you. Innovation Ignition, the spark of success. Markevis's electric personality will ignite your innovation. Pitch your idea and let's see if it sparks. These are
I'll
all
still
though
go.
all equally weird, equally punny. Code Crunch, the battle of the brains. Your brain is the supercomputer. Prove it to Markevis and the investors. And then the last one, Digital Dreams, the Silicon Valley Sleepathon. Dreaming of tech greatness? Pitch your idea to Markevis and see if it's worth $1 million or at least a good night's sleep.
I
I
like
don't
that
know
one
why
too.
sleep is involved.
It's very interesting, but yeah, like a good night's sleep is hard for an entrepreneur. Like if you could get a good idea where you get a good night's sleep, I need to know about it.
You know, that does make a lot more sense now. I think $1 million would be nice, but sometimes you can't put a price tag on a good night's sleep,
You can't.
especially if you wake up at 6:30 or earlier to get the kids started and the business going.
Yep, definitely. Like, see, what I didn't mention is like, I'm waking up at 6:30, which is much later than I want to. But when you're not going to sleep until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it's like, it's a very, very sleepy life.
Okay. The one thing that I don't like about that one is that it mentions Silicon Valley, and you're
I
not based in
know,
Silicon
like
Valley.
I'm not. So it was interesting,
Yeah. Do you
but
think that you have to be in a certain area to be successful, or do you think it's just about, no, just
not
the
at
community
all.
that you're in?
Now, when you look at individuals living in undeveloped countries, look at the continent of Africa, you look at various countries in Asia. There was this one guy that I met every day while living in China, and would sit outside the grocery store and play this game called Dodiju. And every time we're playing, he was one of the guys that would drive a tuk tuk and help taxi people around. So one day he invited me over to his house. He's like, "Hey, we're gonna have hot pie. I'd love for you to come by." I'm like, "Sure." So we go on his tuk tuk to his house, and he pulls into this community, and everyone's greeting him, and I couldn't understand why. And they're like saying Lao Ban, which means boss in Asian in Mandarin. I'm like, okay, he's a boss of the tuk tuks, I guess. But then we go up into one of the buildings, and he had three of the floors in one of the buildings, all his apartment. I was like, this isn't an apartment. This is like a fortress. He's like, oh yeah, I own this community. I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, I've made a deal with the post office so that I make a lot of money. So I bought all this for all my people. And I'm like, what was the deal? It was genius. You know, it was this one thing that was selling on like the Chinese version of eBay. called Taobao. He was selling these things and then realized it was too competitive. So rather than selling it at the same price, because everyone sold it for the same price, he reduced it by 1 yuan. So by reducing it by 1 yuan, he was able to sell a whole lot more. So he went to the post office and said, "Hey, can I get a deduction in all of my shipping since I'm selling in volume?" And they gave him 2 yuan off each shipping cost. So in essence, he made $1 more than everybody else and sold a ton more. And he said he's been doing that for years. I would have was like, it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter what you do or don't do, how smart you think you are. There's opportunity everywhere.
That is so savvy and so simple, yet at the same time complex. I would not have come up with that myself.
Like it blew my mind. I'm like, what? And like when you look at them, that's why I tell people, looks can be very deceiving. Sometimes someone looks very successful and they're not. But this guy, I would have swore he was just like a beggar who rides his tuk tuk. He was the smartest dude I've ever met. Like we became really good friends because I'm like, yo, you could teach me a lot now. Like this was amazing.
That's great. All right. So, Marquivas, we've had a great conversation. Do you have any final words of wisdom or neat stories from around the world to share with us?
What I will share is just don't let anybody impose their limitations onto you. A lot of times people are going to say what you can or can't do. But when you look at it, look in their eyes. Often they're looking down at you. You know what they're doing? They're looking at a younger version of themselves in a mirror that you're holding up for them to see. You need to step from behind that mirror and walk down your own path. You can become a trailblazer so that people can follow you. There's so much opportunity out there, so don't let anybody limit you. Like when people told me I would never go to college, I graduated with 2 degrees. They said I would never leave the tri state area. Visited, well, forget me. My 5 year old has been to 12 countries. My 3 year old's been to 7 countries. Don't tell me where I can and can't go. And they said my business will fail in the first 3 years. Yeah, year three, I'm freaking pitching on Shark Tank. Like, you can do it if you really stay focused on it. You just gotta really trust in something. Like, for me, it's a higher power. Like, God, I'm like, you can order my steps, and that is everything for me. Like, you can do it as well.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to Yes Genius and sharing your story, your many stories, both international and local stories. If people would like to connect with you or find out more about NerdIt Now, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can go to our website, nerdinow.com. You'll find me on LinkedIn at Markevis Gideon, or you can find me, my business on LinkedIn, Facebook. Just look up Nerd It Now, and just know we're here to help you nerd this and nerd that. Us nerds here at Nerd It Now.
All right. Thanks again, Marquivas. We'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you.